have learned through the 3 seasons that Deshaun Watson was part of the Cleveland Browns is Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns is an unworkable situation. We're going to talk about it and where the quarterback room goes. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, we're getting towards milestone numbers, so let's get a couple more subscribers. Become an everydayer, subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available. It is always free wherever you get your podcasts. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. I've been teasing this episode, and I tried to get to it Saturday. Certainly wanted to give you guys a little bonus content. As you all know, a little under weather with a cold, and then, of course, regularly scheduled shows as far as pregame, postgame, but I do appreciate everybody, and we're going to get to this now because this is a pretty good conversation to have, and this is certainly an episode that is just all about one big scenario. We'll attack it from the veteran standpoint. We'll attack it from possible trade possibilities, reclamation projects, and some brief draft talk. Just mentioning some guys and some names, certainly. Next week during the bye week, we will start picking up and delving into a little bit of draft coverage. Had some nice conversations today about guys that we're going to get on here and have some fun with. But look, when Deshaun Watson went down, I guess about 9-10 days ago now, I think we all know that the writing is on the wall. Deshaun's going to get his money somehow, some way. But whether or not come the end of the 2024 season, because who knows, maybe injured, he does come back late in the season just to be a spectator, just to be a teammate, certainly possible. But the Cleveland Browns, once this season ends, however it ends, whenever it ends, will forge forward into 2025, and Deshaun Watson will not be a part of it. My honest belief is the Browns will find a way to, work out the money with Deshaun, and, Deshaun won't be in Berea. Very possible we could have seen the last of Deshaun Watson in Berea. Now, there's certainly several avenues. If you're the Cleveland Browns, you're going to look to address this quarterback room in 2025. Certainly through free agency, certainly through trade possibilities, certainly through the 2025 NFL draft. The only quarterback that will be under contract for 2025 currently for the Cleveland Browns who's on the roster is Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And this can work either for or against DTR here, the way the rest of the season goes. Now, with Jameis having the day he did Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens, it makes all the sense in the world that you're going to give Jameis Winston the next start against the Chargers Sunday. Now, I have no qualms about that, no issues with that. And even if there was a pecking order who was going to get the first shot after Deshaun, it makes sense that it's, the guy who's been in the NFL. He's only 30 years old. It's not like Jameis's career is, over. Could be last opportunity maybe for Jameis to jump up and seize a starting position. So you have to think Jameis is probably highly committed, highly dedicated to, playing out this string here. And, Jameis is a good guy. He's a teammate guy. There's no question about it. But, Jameis Winston would like to keep DTR just where he is, spectator. It certainly doesn't help anything for DTR in the future. And it certainly kind of handcuffs the Browns because they never have gotten the look at DTR they were hoping to get. And, tough spot certainly for the kid. And, you feel for him, but it's the most important position in all of NFL sport, all professional sports. So you have to get it right. And sometimes, you take opportunities and, you make moves and you understand that, a guy that maybe you wanted to get a look at, you're absolutely just going to curb it. And he's never going to get that opportunity. Now, if you're the Browns, you're looking at Jameis Winston here, certainly. You're at 2-6. You have most certainly 9 more games to go. You want to see what Jameis can give you. Jameis is a free agent. He is a guy that if he plays well, I'm not saying you're going to hand over big money or it's going to be like Baker Mayfield's situation in Tampa where a big 3-year, $100 million contract would be extended his way. You're going to understand that, with Jameis, you would hopefully want to re-sign him with the opportunity of being the starting quarterback in 2025, but you want to make that room as good as possible. If it's maybe not Jameis, you're looking at another veteran who's playing right now and will be a free agent next year for the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold. Ironically enough, you go back to Sam Darnold's pro day a few years ago, not more than a few now, right? Who was sitting with Sam Darnold's parents at that pro day? Cleveland Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam. Sam is in a good zone right now. It really is. Things are going really, really well for Sam Darnold. They lost their last 2. Not necessarily all of that is maybe on Sam. But going into the bye here now, real good opportunity for the Vikings to get ready for the stretch run. Unfortunately, lost their left tackle, but they'll get TJ Hawkinson back. There'll have to be some adaptations done to that Minnesota offense. But Sam has looked good. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, getting TJ Hawkinson, running the ball pretty well with Mr. Aaron Jones, who's also a good receiver. Sam Darnold's doing a lot of good for himself right now. Justin Fields will be a free agent at the end of this year. You have to think there's not much of an opportunity unless something happens to Russell Wilson that Justin Fields is going to get an opportunity to show anything else and anything else more for Pittsburgh this year. They were patient. Justin did a nice job. We all kind of thought they were nuts when they went to Russ when they did because Justin Fields was finding a way to get W's on the board. And it's kind of ironic because I think the way Justin Fields was getting W's on the board for the Pittsburgh Steelers is kind of how we were all going to hope that Deshaun Watson was going to get W's on the board for the Cleveland Browns. My expectations certainly had been lower for Deshaun. I was not expecting to see the superstar quarterback on the field that we saw with the Houston Texans after 2 years here. You saw that guy probably is well gone. It's not an age thing. It's more of a talent thing. It's a decision-making thing. There was, came out a couple of weeks ago, where somebody was at a Texans practice when Bill O'Brien was still there, and they were kind of closely monitoring the situation. And it kind of seemed like Bill O'Brien was kind of coaching Deshaun Watson up until the last possible second before he snapped the ball. In college, we see it all the time. So there's many of things, and Deshaun, it just was not working here. And this is not the quarterback the Cleveland Browns certainly thought they were getting. Justin Fields could be a guy who comes in and, certainly could be a bridge QB. But also could be a guy come in and find, intangible way to do just enough on offense to get this team some victories. Mac Jones, not necessarily a route I'd go, but if you want to give an extra name there, there's a former first-round pick who certainly will be available this offseason as a free agent as well. So we've talked about some veterans here. I think for the Browns, Jameis seems to be a great option if he can continue to play. And as much as you all wanted to bring back Joe Flacco, and some of you to even bring back Joe Flacco and be the starter, well, Joe Flacco's 40 years old. Jameis Winston's about to be 30 years old. It makes more sense for it to go that route. But Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, these are all names that certainly can be mentioned as you start to get an idea of what a 2025 Cleveland Browns quarterback room could look like. We're going to continue here. Certainly some other names, a couple of names through trade, maybe a reclamation project or two. We'll continue on your latest Locked On Browns. Okay, real talk. We've all been there, feeling like we're burning cash with those rent checks. It's frustrating, right? But here's the deal. Bilt Rewards has figured out a way to make rent more rewarding. Say goodbye to the money bonfire and hello to a renter's revolution with Bilt. Bilt is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Bilt points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them toward a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Bilt Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Bilt Points has been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bank great. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That is joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. Of course, I appreciate every one of you who make the show your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, if you're not a part of it by now, get on the bus, Gus, and subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Become an everydayer. The show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts, thanks to our new sponsor, Bilt. Also, for anybody who was thinking, obviously, of one of the sponsors of the past, we do miss you, Bilt Bar. We do. Talking a little bit here about trying to envision what a Cleveland Browns quarterback room could look like in 2025. We certainly talked about some veterans that could be brought in to either A, take this job and go on a little run here as a Cleveland Browns starting quarterback, or come in and be a bridge guy. So we talked about free agency. Here's, for me, a couple of names that I would probably talk about through trade scenario. And, first things first, you heard it spoken about today on 92.3 The Fan. I'm pretty sure it was Albert Breer, and talking about where he has no thoughts or any visions that there will be any different form of leadership here for the Browns going into 2025. Jimmy Haslam has longed for security as owner of this franchise. And it seems pretty safe to say that currently Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry are pretty safe. I would think that their contract extensions that were given to them prior to the 2024 season beginning would tell us that as well. But I do understand somebody else who might play devil's advocate and say, well, does a head have to roll over the Deshaun Watson trade, contract extension, and certainly poor play? I can't give you the straight answer on that, but it's certainly a damn good question to bring. Somebody's got to play contrarian. I doubt, I don't disagree with that. The other part of that also would be is, as much as everybody was all a go in on moving on from Baker Mayfield and bringing in Deshaun Watson, do you maybe necessarily trust those people to make yet another, hopefully winning this time, major quarterback decision? A couple of thoughts there. This team has succeeded at the quarterback position with Jacoby Brissett, and I don't mean by winning and that type of thing, but Jacoby Brissett played good ball for this team as a quarterback. We saw this team win with DTR, of course. We saw this team win with PJ Walker, of course. We saw this team win and win well and win consistently with Joe Flacco. It's a little early to determine what the fate of Jameis Winston is going to be, but Jameis Winston looked all that and then some Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens. So you have your belief that Coach Stefanski's system works. You have your belief that Andrew Berry can work with Kevin Stefanski to find quarterbacks to work within Kevin Stefanski's offense. These are just facts. The only guy who didn't work was the biggest name and supposedly the biggest talent of them all. Odd scenario. Very odd scenario. Now, you get to, certainly this segment and where we're going with this is, looking at, a possible trade, for a quarterback. The Browns obviously were most likely not heavily invested in the quarterback market in the 2024 NFL draft. Didn't have a first round pick, only had a second round pick. The quarterbacks flew off the board early in round one. You had already at the time had Deshaun on the roster. You had Jameis on the roster. You had Snoop Huntley on the roster. You had DTR on the roster. Browns did not draft a quarterback. And again, we don't know where they stood on any of the quarterbacks because there was no opportunity for them to even get close to when Cleveland made its first selection. But that being said, if I'm Andrew Berry, I'm sitting down with my scouting department and I'm sitting down with whoever I trust as my quarterback guy. And I'm saying, where were we on Michael Pennix? Where were we? because it's still an odd scenario. And every time I think about it, I do one of these, what in the hell were they thinking? After the Atlanta Falcons brought in Kirk Cousins and guaranteed good money to Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles injury. And to his credit, it took a little while for Kirk to get going, but Kirk Cousins is just out there doing Kirk Cousins type stuff. So the way Kirk Cousins is currently playing for the Atlanta Falcons, it makes you wonder when exactly or where exactly an opportunity for Michael Pennix would come. So I'm going to get with my quarterback people and say, A, what did we think of Michael Pennix coming out? If it was, yes, we liked him. Yes, we liked him for a fit for our current system, which should be the same system in 2025. It's not going to hurt to give a call down to Atlanta and see just exactly what it might take. Trades happen all the time in the NFL. Also, and this is one I had this name on the list, but now it kind of becomes even more relevant with today's news that Anthony Richardson is out as the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. And here he comes again, Joe Flacco. But Anthony Richardson isn't even 23 years old. Anthony Richardson has all the God-given ability in the world. Do you look at a scenario like this and do you say, hey, let's call the Colts? What would it take? I don't think it's certainly not going to take your first round pick. Does it take your second round pick? And puts the Colts in a better situation and maybe look at this year's quarterback class and see if somebody fits them better. Of course, on the Colts part, it's going to require a little bit of patience, boys. You can't draft a raw guy who played as limited as Anthony Richardson did in college, draft him as high as you did, make him a day one starter, and he misses most of his rookie year due to injury. Then, after 10 starts combined between his rookie and second year, you pull him. I mean, look, first off, you're in the Indianapolis Colts. I don't think you're going anywhere regardless, And as we all know, Browns fans, Joe Flacco down that yellow brick road, the longer you make the yellow brick road, there's a better chance that Joe Flacco might stumble before he gets to the finish of it. It's not a knock. It's just the truth. And we all loved what he did here. But by the time that playoff game came around, there wasn't much left in the tank, unfortunately. But do you say if there's a scenario where it's a Jameis Winston or a Justin Fields, you have an Anthony Richardson, and, a lot to be worked on. And a lot of the things with Anthony Richardson, it's the easier stuff that he needs to work with. It's the hitting the backs out. It's hitting your checkdowns. The arm is electric. He can throw the ball all over the field. He was hitting a lot of deep balls. The problem is all the short and intermediate stuff. And that's the stuff that takes time in the NFL. He's still a great athlete, runs well. Everything about the guy, just, he passes the getting off the bus test. There's no question about it. Last name I'll give you in this reclamation project, and he would be a free agent, Trey Lance, former North Dakota State, highly, highly sought after by the San Francisco 49ers, now toiling away on the Dallas Cowboys bench. He was loved by his Niners teammates. You saw almost every Niner at the end of that game Sunday night come on over and make sure that they, said hello and paid their respects to former teammate Trey Lance. So these would be certainly some trade targets. Certainly would be some reclamation products. You could pair them with a Jameis Winston. You could pair them with a Sam Darnold. You could pair them with a Justin Fields. Just trying to maybe get some ideas of some names that could be bounced about as to who would be in the quarterback room in 2025. Certainly DTR an option as either quarterback 2 or quarterback 3. We're going to continue here, talk some names from the draft. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. Obviously, we're chatting it up here, talking a little about what the Browns quarterback room could look like in 2025. I think we're all in agreement that the Deshaun Watson era is over, and I don't think the Browns have any interest in any way whatsoever of having him be a part of this team. He'll get his money. They will work all of that out. But I think we have seen certainly the last of Deshaun Watson ever wearing a uniform for this team. Again, maybe he shows up, support later in the season. But DW's time with the Cleveland Browns is well over. Colossal mistake, no question about it. But biggest thing with any mistake you ever make, and this is not just a sports thing, this is a lesson in life. If you realize it is a grave mistake, you get the hell away from it as soon as you possibly can. Now, certainly we talked about names that could be had through free agency. We've talked about names that could be had through trade, maybe reclamation projects. Comes down to the draft. Now, I love Shedeur Sanders. I think part of the thing with Shedeur Sanders is, are you a Deion guy or are you not a Deion guy? I am a Florida State fan. My earliest recollections of Florida State football are certainly Deion Sanders. Loved him as a player, two-sport athlete, all of that stuff. Am I a huge fan of everything Deion Sanders does now? Not necessarily. But do I think that Deion Sanders does everything he does with the best interests of certainly his two sons, but also his players? Yes, I do. I think, even if he's rubbing you the wrong way, if it was my kid who was going to go play for the University of Colorado, I think Deion would have my son's back and would have my son's back hard. Love his game. Truly do. Love Shedeur's game. There is a question of whether Deion would let him go to Cleveland. Who knows? I mean, it's way too early to tell on that stuff. But, hey, kid, here's $35 million guaranteed. What father's going to tell their son? No. Jalen Milroe is interesting. Certainly was benched last year, got the job back at Alabama. There's been ups and downs this year at Alabama. His legs certainly help him. But you do wonder, in playing all the talent that he has at Alabama, is that maybe, prompting Milroe up a little bit more? Who knows? Cam Ward at Miami. I think Florida State gave him a real tough matchup. Florida State sucks this year, and I'll be the first to admit it. But I think they, did a nice mixture of cover two and some man stuff, that showed Cam a look that maybe Cam hadn't seen this year. I certainly think he's a first-round talent. I don't think he's going to day one starter. And this is the problem. This might not be the best class to, need a quarterback. And a lot of this will certainly be contingent on how the Browns close out this season. So certainly, things to watch for. Carson Beck from Georgia, I like, but, there's some sloppiness to the game, certainly right now, not playing at the level that, most people would expect from him. Quinn Ewers from Texas, no, absolutely not. How he's still the quarterback for Texas, I have no idea. Arch Manning is the better player. There's no question about it. And anybody wants to, bring up Arch Manning, I don't even think Arch Manning is going to be in the 26th draft. The Manning family seems pretty stern that Arch Manning is going to play 4 years of college football. And the other thing is Arch Manning can probably make $20 million in his time in NIL money if he stays at Texas. Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, I don't see a starting quarterback in the NFL, at least one that's going to start right away. Drew Alar from Penn State is certainly an interesting name. The name that seems to be really on the rise right now, and, certainly helps when a guy like Dane Brugler absolutely pinpoints you. And look, Dane Brugler talks, people listen. Great friend of the show, great friend. Dane Brugler's a fantastic guy. And when you throw something like the Nuss Bus and you give somebody a nickname, people are going to gravitate, and they're going to gravitate pretty quickly. So certainly names, to look out for. Shedeur Sanders goes round one, in my opinion. Cam Ward goes round one. Maybe Nussmeier goes round one. It's really tough to figure all of this out at this point in time. But the Browns certainly could be in this unique mixture of, trying to have who could be maybe QB1 or could be certainly the bridge guy. Jameis could play well for the rest of the season, and Browns may say, hey, look, we're going to give you the shot to be QB1 in 2025. We have DTR, who we think can be a QB2, and we will certainly draft somebody because that's, what you do. You build a room. You want it today. You want a backup quarterback, and you hopefully want what'll be tomorrow. Maybe your quarterback 2 is your tomorrow. Maybe your quarterback 3 is your tomorrow. But you could put together a scenario of, a QB soft 1 of Jameis Winston, Sam Darnold, Justin Fields. A room where Michael Pennix could be QB1. Or a Jameis Winston, Anthony Richardson 1, 2, and DTR. or certainly this rookie class with a Shedeur Sanders, a Jalen Milroe, a Cam Ward, a Garrett Nussmeier. It's going to be a long road to get to where this Browns quarterback room is going to be in 2025. But if there is one thing I am absolutely 1,000% sure of, is that Deshaun Watson will not be part of the Cleveland Browns quarterback room in 2025. You know it's over. You knew it was over well before it was over. And the Browns just need to put this in the rearview mirror as fast and quickly as they possibly can. The contract stuff will work itself out. Those conversations will certainly come down the road as well. But the Cleveland Browns will have a new QB1 in 2025 and certainly have another new quarterback on the roster as well. Unless famous Jameis Winston sets up for a nice little fun run here in Cleveland. Certainly got the personality, certainly got the fan backing. And if he continue to play like he did on Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens, it'll be a fun time for Browns fans. My name is Jeff Lloyd. You guys all know I'm the host here at Locked On Browns. I appreciate everyone who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd is a bunch of filthy animals, but they're my filthy animals. I suggest you become a filthy animal as well. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It is always free wherever you get your podcasts. When you're done here, make sure you stick around. Check out the Locked On NFL podcasts. Tyler Rowan, fired up, salty 1-6 Titans fan, talking about anything in the NFL, and Tyler does not hold back in anything ever. And of course, Tony Wiggins in the afternoon, Locked On NFL, and he's another one, calls it like he sees it, both straight shooters, both fantastic guys. And with that, this has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.